Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Science Channel. Tonight, we'll be exploring the wonderful world of rivers. The quiet and powerful architects of our Earth. They cut paths through stone, feed forests with nutrients, and carry the memory of ancient civilizations in every grain of silt. A river can sculpt an entire valley, be the lifeblood of a city, or hold mountains in the layers beneath its banks. Some travel unseen beneath the ground, while others glow with rare minerals. And others trace routes once followed by ancient kingdoms or migrating wildlife. Each one holds stories full of wonder and fascination. We'll discover rivers that have transformed continents, built civilizations, and hidden remarkable wonders beneath their surfaces. From vast tropical channels to narrow desert streams, rivers reveal the slow and powerful forces that sculpt our planet. If you enjoy these quiet journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, just breathe. Allow the day to fade away, and let the gentle flow of water settle your thoughts. Let's begin. Underground rivers can shape entire landscapes without ever being seen. Deep below the surface, water moves through hidden passageways where no sunlight reaches. In limestone regions, it slips into fractures as thin as a fingernail, slowly widening until the rock begins to open like a secret door. Over centuries, tiny rivulets combine into powerful flows. These can carve vast chambers, large enough to swallow entire city blocks. Stalactites and stone curtains grow in the quiet darkness, marking the slow heartbeat of geological time. Above, the land appears calm, yet the ground may be hollowed out like a honeycomb. Hills rise where ceilings remain strong. Valleys form where they collapse. Some forests grow on top of arches that once echoed with flowing water. When a surface stream disappears into a sinkhole and reappears in a different valley, it reveals the presence of these secret networks. Entire landscapes can shift, tilt, or fall open because unseen rivers have been patiently sculpting the world from below. The Indus once sustained Bronze Age cities built around its rhythms. Long before written language captured the daily lives of ancient people, the settlements along this floodplain mastered the art of living with a river that could be generous one year and unpredictable the next. Archaeologists have uncovered streets arranged in perfect grids, each aligned to carry runoff out of the city when waters rose. Wells were carved deep into rich alluvium, ensuring that families could draw clean groundwater replenished by distant snowmelt. Farmers planted in the dark, fertile soils left behind after seasonal floods receded, shaping landscapes that could feed entire populations. Workshops traded goods along water routes that stretched far beyond the horizon. Boats carried grain, pottery, and stone from one walled town to another, linking communities into a thriving network. When climate shifts altered the river's flow and its dependable pulse faded, these cities slowly declined. The remnants still whisper of a civilization that flourished because it understood the rhythm of a powerful and ever-changing river. Some rivers carry enough water to reshape distant coastlines. Far from the headwaters, where mountains break into foothills, great channels gather sediment from every hillside and valley they cross. Grain by grain, they collect material that once formed cliffs, forests, and plains. When these swollen currents reach the sea, the meeting of fresh and salt water slows their momentum and forces them to release their cargo. Over decades, the deposited mud and sand expand into wide deltas that advance into the ocean like enormous fans. New land is born in the shallow waves. Marshes rise, channels braid into twisting paths, and underwater ridges grow tall enough for vegetation to take hold. Birds, crabs, and fish claim the new territory before human settlements eventually follow. From the sky, these deltas look like fingerprints pressed into the coastline. They bend the edge of continents, turning what was once open water into vast plains. Coastlines that appear eternal can shift astonishing distances because a river hundreds of miles inland continues its patient work. Ancient peoples learned river flood cycles long before they wrote them down. Communities living beside unpredictable currents observed the world with extraordinary care. They noticed which stars climbed over the horizon just before high waters arrived, which insects hatched when the banks turned muddy, and which winds swept across the valley on the eve of a flood. These patterns became the backbone of early calendars long before ink touched clay. Stories told around fires preserved the knowledge. Psalms described the first safe days of planting. Ceremonies marked the time when water would return with its promise of renewal. Some villages carved notches into stone pillars to record the greatest floods, creating physical memory for future generations. Fields were placed where floods enriched the soil with dark, fertile sediment. Homes were raised on mounds shaped by earlier generations to stay above overflowing channels. Even without writing, these people learned to read their rivers with precision, building entire cultures on observation, patience, and deep respect for water that governed their survival. The Yukon preserves evidence of human journeys across continents. In the northern wilderness, where winters stretch long and summers arrive in a quick burst of green, this river winds through a landscape shaped by ancient ice. Along its bluffs, erosion reveals layers of frozen silt that act like a time vault. Archaeologists have found hearths, bone fragments, and tools that belonged to travelers who crossed the region when a land bridge connected distant continents. These people used the river valley as a natural corridor through harsh terrain. Fish migrations provided food that could be smoked and stored. Driftwood from far upstream offered fuel even in treeless stretches. As the climate shifted and glaciers retreated, the river continued to bury evidence of these journeys beneath new layers of sediment. Today, melting permafrost and eroding banks occasionally expose delicate remains that have rested for thousands of years. Each discovery adds to the story of how early humans navigated vast landscapes using the steady guidance of flowing water. Some rivers cross several climate zones without changing nature. A single continuous waterway can begin as a cold trickle fed by melting snow, widen into a rushing torrent through pine forests, drift calmly across sun-drenched grasslands, and then wind into humid lowlands, rich with broadleaf trees. Along the way, the scenery transforms dramatically, yet the identity of the river remained the same. Its waters carry minerals from every environment it touches, blending mountain stone with prairie soil and forest humus. Animals living along one stretch may never encounter the species living farther downstream, yet they all depend on the same lifeline. For migratory fish, this corridor links entirely different climates in one long journey. For plants, its seasonal floods deposit a mixture of sediments gathered from diverse landscapes. Such rivers behave like threads stitching together separate ecological worlds, creating a continuous chain of habitats that would otherwise remain isolated. Their ability to span climates without losing their continuity shapes ecosystems across vast distances. A shift in one river channel has sparked major historical conflicts. In some regions, political boundaries rely on the precise location of a river. Yet the path of moving water is never fixed. Over years of erosion and deposition, currents carve deeper on one side and build new ground on the other. A violent flood can force the entire channel into a fresh course overnight, cutting through orchards, villages, or open fields. When a river forms the line between two territories, such changes ignite disputes. One side may claim that the altered course steals land that has belonged to them for generations. The other may argue that the river itself defines the true boundary, regardless of where it flows. Maps become outdated, treaties grow ambiguous, and tensions rise as farmland, resources, and settlements suddenly shift from one side to the other. Some of these disputes have dragged on for decades, all because the landscape itself refused to remain still beneath the pull of flowing water. Nutrient-rich rivers can feed forests far beyond their banks. High in the mountains, rain loosens soil from ridges and slopes. Streams gather these particles and carry them into wider channels that eventually spill across surrounding floodplains. When the waters retreat, they leave behind thin blankets of silt filled with minerals and fragments of organic matter. Trees tap into this renewed soil, growing taller and denser than they would under normal conditions. Seasonal floods carry drifting seeds that germinate in the enriched ground, adding new layers of biodiversity. In some regions, migrating fish return from the ocean packed with nutrients collected during their time at sea. When they perish after spawning, their bodies release marine elements into river systems, and these elements gradually spread into forests far from the water. Animals that feed along the banks transport nutrients inward, leaving traces as they roam. Over time, the river's influence stretches far beyond its immediate channel, nourishing entire landscapes with material gathered from distant mountains and seas. The Paruna once flowed with enough force to build entire new islands. Across the wide floodplains of South America, this river has long carried tremendous amounts of sand, clay, and organic debris from highland valleys. During periods of intense rainfall, it expands across vast surfaces, losing speed in certain stretches where the current can no longer hold its full load. Sediment drops out of suspension and collects in quiet pockets. Over many seasons, these deposits thicken and begin to break the surface. Grasses sprout first, anchoring the unstable ground. Later, shrubs and young trees take root, drawing bird life and insects that weave the first threads of an emerging ecosystem. Channels shift around the rising mass, splitting into braided passages that wrap the new island in flowing water. Some islands become stable enough to support forests. Others continue to migrate as the river rearranges them grain by grain. What looks like permanent land in this region is often the living work of a powerful river building its own geography. River sediments hold atmospheres from ages long past. Raindrops absorb gases from the air as they fall, creating a chemical signature of the atmosphere at that moment. When those droplets hit soil and rock, they lift microscopic particles that carry clues about local vegetation, weather patterns, and even distant volcanic activity. Streams collect this mixture and transport it into wider channels where it settles as fine layers of mud and sand. Over centuries, these layers accumulate like pages in a book. Scientists can extract cores from ancient floodplains and read the history preserved within. Ratios of certain elements reveal shifts in temperature, rainfall, and vegetation. Tiny shells made by microscopic organisms record changes in the chemistry of the water. Even the shape of pollen grains trapped in the layers indicates which plants thrived or struggled. Through these small fragments, a river preserves stories about the air that once filled the sky, offering a way to reconstruct climates long before humans measured them. The Amazon sends a flying river of vapor across a continent. Moisture rises from the dense green canopy in amounts so large that it behaves like an invisible airborne waterway. Every tree releases tiny droplets through its leaves, and the combined effect of millions upon millions of trees creates a column of vapor that moves through the atmosphere like a steady current. Winds sweep this moisture westward, carrying it far from the rainforest into dry inland regions that depend on it for rain. Meteorologists have tracked these drifting corridors of humidity and found that their influence reaches vast mountain ranges where the air cools and drops its cargo as rain or snow. Farmers, forests, and entire ecosystems rely on this airborne flow to survive seasonal droughts. When storms form in distant regions, their strength and timing often reflect the hidden presence of this traveling vapor. It acts as a bridge between climates, linking humid lowlands with high plateaus in a cycle sustained by the quiet breath of countless leaves below. Some river mouths build underwater fans larger than entire nations. As powerful currents reach the open sea, they slow and release the enormous loads of sediment carried from far inland. Sand, silt, and clay drift downward in thick clouds and settle on the seafloor. Over time, these deposits spread outward, forming underwater fans that can stretch for great distances. These submerged landscapes are shaped by hidden currents that flow along the seafloor, carving channels that resemble the patterns seen in deltas above water. Marine life thrives along the new surfaces, feeding on nutrients washed from the continent. The buildup of these structures can alter ocean circulation, influence fish migration routes, and even change local climates. In some places, underwater canyons slice through these deposits, guiding deep water currents that transport cold, nutrient-rich flows toward the surface. What appears to be a featureless expanse from above is often a complex and dynamic world, sculpted by silt drifting down from rivers that may lie hundreds of miles away. The Nile stores human history in layer after layer of floodplain soil. Every time the river overflowed its banks in ancient times, it left behind another thin sheet of fertile earth. Within those layers rest broken pots, stone flakes, seeds, pollen, and the faint traces of fires lit by early communities. Archaeologists can slice into these deposits to reveal scenes from long-vanished lives. Some layers hold the remnants of early farmers who cultivated wheat and barley along narrow strips of moisture. Others preserve animal bones from wild creatures that roamed the valley before cities rose. Even the chemistry of the soil records changing fortunes, with certain layers reflecting years of strong floods and others hinting at droughts that strained the harvest. Each accumulation is a quiet chapter in the long story of cultures that relied on predictable cycles for survival. By reading the ground beneath their feet, researchers uncover the origins of beliefs, rituals, and technologies shaped by a river that offered food, transport, and stability across many generations. Some rivers flow through caverns that stay dark for miles. There are places where a surface stream disappears into a narrow crack and enters a world of total darkness. The walls widen into towering halls where rushing water echoes through chambers that have never seen daylight. Minerals dissolved in the flow leave patterns on the stone, forming curtains, spirals, and smooth polish that reflect the long passage of time. Blind fish navigate these shadowed corridors by touch and vibration. Crickets and tiny beetles scavenge among damp rocks, living entire lives without ever experiencing the sun. These caverns grow as water chips away at the bedrock, grain by grain, and collapse in some areas to create hidden waterfalls that plunge into underground pools. Explorers who venture into these passages often find multiple levels stacked above or below one another, each carved during different eras of rainfall and climate. Such labyrinths remind us that rivers can shape worlds both seen and unseen, each with its own quiet inhabitants. The Congo holds rapids powerful enough to split species over time. In Central Africa, a series of fast-moving cascades creates a natural barrier unlike any other on the continent. Fish traveling upstream encounter swirling chutes, sudden drops, and narrow channels where water surges with enormous force. Over long stretches of history, these obstacles have separated populations into isolated pockets. Without contact, each group adapts to its own environment. Some develop new body shapes suited for clinging to rocks. Others evolve sensory organs tuned to the vibrations of turbulent flow. Genetic studies reveal patterns of divergence that map directly onto the arrangement of these rapids. The water itself drives the process by restricting movement and shaping the conditions in which organisms must survive. Even species that appear almost identical far downstream show surprising differences when found above the turbulent zone. These conditions demonstrate how a river's physical character can guide evolution, turning narrow stretches of fast water into engines of biological change. Certain rivers are older than the mountains they cross today. Long before towering peaks rose into the sky, some rivers already wound across wide plains that stretched far beyond the horizon. As tectonic forces pushed the land upward, the existing channels kept cutting downward at a steady pace, refusing to be diverted. The mountains rose around them, leaving deep gorges that sliced straight through ridges. These canyons reveal ancient rock layers that predate the rivers themselves, yet the waterways persisted because their flow was strong enough and constant enough to outpace the uplift. Travelers standing in such gorges witness the incredible result of that struggle between land and water. Sheer cliffs rise on either side, while the river continues its quiet passage, as it has for millions of years. By tracing these paths, geologists can reconstruct the timing and speed of mountain formation. The landscapes show that even the greatest peaks cannot always force a river to change its course. The Danube has served as a cultural highway for thousands of years. Communities along this long European waterway have shared ideas, goods, and stories since early prehistory. Boats moved pottery, amber, metal, and grain between distant regions long before roads connected them. Ancient settlements rose on its banks because the river offered food, transport, and fertile ground. Empires used it as a frontier and a lifeline, sending messages and soldiers along its steady flow. Monasteries, forts, and trading towns appeared wherever the landscape offered safe harbors. Languages blended, beliefs crossed borders, and culinary traditions merged as travelers followed the current. Even today, the river links many nations and remains central to cultural identity across the region. It reveals how moving water can bind diverse peoples into one connected corridor, carrying knowledge and influence between places that might otherwise have remained strangers. Few waterways have shaped as many societies for as long as this remarkable path across the continent. River ice can carve valleys through slow winter pressure. In cold climates, water freezes layer by layer until the channel turns into a solid mass that shifts its weight against the banks. As temperatures fluctuate, cracks form and refill with meltwater that expands again when the cold returns. This cycle pries rocks apart and weakens the soil around them. During spring thaw, the loosened material breaks free and slips into the current. Over many winters, this quiet process widens valleys and deepens channels without the violent force of a flood. In some regions, immense slabs of ice grind downstream, scraping the bed like moving stones. They drag boulders, carve grooves, and shatter smaller rocks that lie in their path. Researchers studying these patterns can see the marks left behind in striated surfaces and scattered debris. While ice may seem still and silent, its repeated advance and retreat can reshape entire landscapes in ways that escape notice from season to season. The Mekong creates a yearly flood pulse that feeds millions. Each year, seasonal rains in distant mountains swell this river until it spreads into an immense inland sea. As the waters rise, fish migrate into flooded forests where they feed on fruits, insects, and falling leaves. Farmers, fishers, and foragers time their activities around this cycle. Rice fields become nutrient-rich lakes that support vast harvests once the water retreats. Villages adapted their architecture to this rhythm, building homes that stand tall on stilts so families can live above the rising currents. When the floodwaters withdraw, they leave behind dark, fertile soil that supports crops capable of feeding entire regions. Markets fill with fish caught during the peak season, and the floodplain becomes a center of activity. This yearly breathing of the landscape links ecological and human systems into one interdependent pattern. The pulse transforms the region, anchoring traditions, livelihoods, and ecosystems in a cycle as old as the river itself. Some rivers are so clear that sunlight touches their beds unbroken. In rare places where erosion is mild and soils contain few loose particles, water flows over stone and sand without picking up significant sediment. The result is astonishing clarity that reveals every pebble and ripple below. Fish glide through the current like shapes suspended in air. Plants anchored to the bottom sway in slow underwater motion, their colors bright beneath the surface. When sunlight strikes the channel, it continues downward with almost no interruption, illuminating rocks and hidden crevices. This clarity supports unique ecosystems that depend on clean light to thrive. The water remains cool and oxygen-rich, creating ideal conditions for sensitive species that cannot survive in murky environments. Visitors standing on bridges or riverbanks can watch the entire aquatic world unfold beneath them, from tiny insects clinging to submerged stones to the shadows of larger creatures slipping through deeper pools. Such rivers reveal the quiet beauty of water in its purest form. Wind-sculpted dunes can march across deserts because of river-borne sand. Grains carried from distant mountains begin their journey in fast-moving channels that grind rock into smaller and smaller fragments. When floods ease and currents slow, these particles settle along riverbanks where they wait for the next stage of travel. Over time, wind picks up the lightest pieces and sweeps them into open deserts. Each grain leaps forward in tiny arcs, lifted by gusts and dropped again a short distance away. As countless fragments shift in this pattern, they gather into rising slopes that form dunes. The steep sides grow and collapse in slow movements that push entire ridges forward. Some advance only a few feet each year, while others glide across the landscape at surprising speeds. Plants and animals adapt to these mobile structures, seeking shelter in the hollows and ridges. Satellite images reveal long trails of dunes that trace the invisible roots of the winds that sculpt them. What begins as river sediment can eventually become a moving architecture shaped entirely by air. The rhyme has been redirected repeatedly throughout recorded history. Settlements along this waterway have long depended on its steady current for transport and trade. Yet the river has never remained fixed. Natural shifts in its course altered shorelines, flooded fields, and created new islands over generations. As towns expanded, efforts to control the channel grew more ambitious. Engineers cut artificial paths to prevent flooding, drained marshes to create farmland, and built embankments to force the current into a straighter line. Old bends became quiet oxbow lakes. Former tributaries dried into meadows. Maps from different centuries show the river in dramatically different shapes as each era left its mark. These changes affected fisheries, travel routes, and regional economies. Even today, the river continues to respond to climate patterns, rainfall, and the gradual buildup of sediment. The landscape along its banks reflects a long partnership between people and flowing water, shaped by both natural forces and human intervention across many centuries. Swift rivers can carry upright trees as if they were statues. During powerful storms, currents swell with such strength that they tear dead trunks from riverbanks. Instead of toppling, some trees enter the water still rooted in thick clumps of soil. As they drift, the broad base acts like a keel that keeps them standing. The sight can be startling. A whole trunk glides downstream, branches pointed toward the sky as though walking on water. These floating pillars travel long distances before tipping over or breaking apart. Along the way, they create temporary shelters for fish, turtles, and insects that gather around the moving shade. Birds sometimes perch briefly on the drifting branches, using them as resting platforms between flights. When the trees finally lodge against rocks or settle in shallow areas, they alter currents and form new habitats that last for years. What begins as a violent result of floodwater becomes an unexpected moment of grace, as entire trunks drift like living statues. The Mississippi has built entire regions from its constant sediment flow. As this vast river crosses the continent, it collects mineral grains and organic fragments from thousands of tributaries. Each flood season, it spreads over lowlands and carries its load toward the sea. When the current slows near the coast, much of that material settles into thick layers that gradually rise above the water. Over centuries, these deposits have grown into plains that support farms, forests, towns, and marshes. Channels shift across this ever-expanding surface, abandoning old paths and carving new ones. Some areas now considered stable ground once lay beneath shallow water. The vegetation that colonizes these deposits stabilizes the soil, allowing the next generation of sediment to build even higher. The process continues year after year, creating land that expands outward like the branches of a tree. The scale of this construction is immense. An entire region owes its existence to the quiet work of water carrying the remains of distant mountains and fertile soil from far upstream. Hidden in the Amazon are hot rivers that approach boiling heat. Deep within the forest lie stretches of water where steam rises from the surface even on cool mornings. These unusual channels are heated not by magma, but by underground springs that deliver intensely hot water into the main flow. As the stream moves through its basin, temperatures remain astonishingly high, creating a rare environment where few animals can survive. Leaves that fall in are cooked within moments. Small creatures that tumble into the current perish quickly. Yet specialized plants and microorganisms thrive along the margins where the heat begins to fade. The source of this warmth lies in deep geological layers where groundwater travels through heated rock before emerging at the surface. Local communities have long known these waters and regard them with a mixture of respect and caution. Scientists who study them gain valuable insight into the interactions between groundwater, geothermal energy, and rainforest hydrology in one of the most remote regions of the world. Terraced riverbanks record climate shifts across deep time. In many valleys, steep steps rise along the edges of a channel. Each level marks a former floodplain once carved by the river as it flowed at a different height. Over thousands of years, climate variations changed rainfall patterns and altered the strength of flows. During wet periods, the river cut downward with increased force, leaving older terraces stranded above the new channel. During drier times, the flow slowed and wandered across wider surfaces, building additional layers of silt. These stacked platforms hold clues about vegetation, temperature, and precipitation from the eras in which they formed. Fossils, pollen, and buried soils within the terraces reveal details about past ecosystems. By reading these layered shelves, researchers can reconstruct long-term environmental trends and understand how rivers responded to shifting climates. Each terrace stands as a quiet record of a world that once existed at a different elevation along the valley wall. The Tigris and Euphrates supported irrigation systems beyond their era. Along the floodplains of ancient Mesopotamia, early societies engineered canals that guided water into fields far from the main channels. These networks allowed crops to grow in seasons when rainfall could not sustain them. Farmers built embankments of mud and red, adjusting their height and width to control how much water reached each plot. Gatekeepers managed the flow using simple mechanisms crafted from wood and stone. Entire cities depended on these systems for nourishment, and their success supported the growth of markets, temples, and written administration. Even as some river courses changed over time, remnants of the canals remained visible in the landscape, falling patterns that still appear in satellite images today. The sophistication of these irrigation designs reveals how deeply early cultures understood their environment. Without their knowledge of seasonal pulses and soil behavior, the region would never have supported the large populations that once flourished between these two rivers. Mineral-rich rivers create travertine waterfalls that grow taller each year. When water flows through limestone regions, it dissolves minerals that remain suspended until the current spills over a ledge or cascades down a cliff. As the water tumbles through the air, carbon dioxide escapes and leaves behind thin films of calcite. Layer by layer, these films harden into travertine, a pale stone that forms terraces, ridges, and dramatic steps. Over time, the buildup becomes so thick that waterfalls rise higher than their original foundations. Pools develop behind the stone curtains, filled with clear water that reflects surrounding vegetation. Microbial communities grow on the fresh deposits, influencing the shape of the formations and adding subtle textures. Visitors who stand near these cascades witness living geology in motion, as each new sheet of mineral slowly extends the edge forward. These formations demonstrate how rivers do not only carve landscapes, but also build entirely new structures from dissolved rock. The Volga once sustained nomadic kingdoms that roamed the steppe. Across the sweeping grasslands of Eurasia, this river provided a dependable corridor where herders found fresh grazing and access to fish. Communities moved with the seasons, following the natural rhythm of water and pasture. Camps rose along the banks, where horses could drink and families could trade goods with travelers passing through. Archaeological discoveries revealed traces of metalwork, pottery, and textile production that flourished in these mobile societies. The river allowed distant tribes to meet for trade and negotiation, linking territories that might otherwise remain isolated. Seasonal floodplains provided fertile ground for temporary cultivation, offering grains that supplemented pastoral life. Stories and traditions passed between groups as they gathered near the water. Although many of those kingdoms have faded, the traces of their presence still lie beneath the soil, preserved in burial mounds and scattered artifacts. The river acted as a lifeline for cultures that lived in motion across the wide-open steppe. Some rivers preserve whole forests as fossilized logs beneath their beds. When powerful floods uproot trees, the trunks can become buried beneath thick layers of silt and sand. In environments rich in minerals, these buried remains undergo a slow transformation. Groundwater circulates through the sediments, carrying dissolved elements that replace the organic material within the wood. Over long periods, the structure of the tree turns to stone while retaining its original shape and texture. Some trunks emerge with vivid patterns of quartz or iron, creating colorful fossils that reveal details about species that grew thousands or even millions of years ago. When riverbeds shift or erode, these petrified logs appear in cliffs, gravel bars, or exposed banks, offering glimpses of ancient ecosystems. Their presence helps scientists understand how landscapes changed and what kinds of forests once covered the region. The quiet work of sediment and mineral-rich water turns entire stands of fallen timber into enduring geological stories. The Ganges feeds a web of rare species found nowhere else. Across northern India, this river supports a living tapestry woven from creatures that depend on its shifting currents, deep pools, and fertile floodplains. Along its banks, freshwater turtles nest in sandy bars where the warmth of the sun helps their eggs mature. In quiet stretches, a small species of shark swims upriver to hunt in brackish channels that blur the line between fresh and salt water. Soft-shelled turtles bury themselves in the mud to wait for passing prey. Certain fish species have evolved unique behaviors to navigate the fast-moving water, rising and sinking in rhythmic patterns shaped by its seasonal pulse. Among the most remarkable inhabitants are the river dolphins, which navigate by sound and thrive in deep swirling stretches where visibility fades to blue-gray. Along the edges, wetland plants anchor the soil while cranes, storks, and herons gather in vast flocks during migration season. The diversity of life supported by this single waterway forms an ecosystem unlike any other on Earth, shaped by centuries of changing monsoon patterns and the steady presence of fresh water that ties all these species together. Storm surges can push rivers backward against their own flow. When strong winds sweep across coastal waters, they can pile enormous volumes of seawater into river mouths. As the ocean rises, the incoming surge forces the river to retreat, reversing its normal course. Fish, accustomed to steady fresh water, suddenly face briny conditions rushing upstream. Mud and sand shift in the turbulence, reshaping channels and banks. Boats tied along the shore may swing in the opposite direction as the backward current gains strength. In extreme cases, water can climb far inland, carrying marine creatures into areas where they are rarely seen. Once the winds ease and the ocean settles, the river resumes its natural direction, but the landscape often bears signs of the temporary reversal. Deposits of seaweed or shells may linger on floodplains. Channels may deepen or widen after the unusual pressure. These episodes illustrate the powerful influence of coastal storms and the delicate balance between land and sea that rivers must navigate as they move toward their final destination. The Yenisei holds traces of glacial lakes that once covered Siberia. During the last great ice ages, massive walls of ice dammed valleys and trapped meltwater into enormous basins. As the climate warmed and glaciers retreated, these lakes spilled over in catastrophic floods that carved deep scars in the land. Along this long northern river, scientists have found remnants of those ancient events preserved in gravel bars, terraces, and buried sediments. The distribution of certain stones reveals where powerful flows once swept through, transporting material from places that now lie far upstream. Layers of fine silt record the quiet periods when vast lakes stood still, reflecting the pale sky for centuries before draining. Fossil pollen preserved in the sediments shows which plants survived the cold and which arrived later as the climate eased. By studying these deposits, researchers reconstruct the incredible transformations that shaped Siberia long before written records. The river serves as a natural archive of shifting ice, ancient shorelines, and the immense forces that once dominated the northern world. Floodplains store carbon in layers that outlast civilizations. Each time rising water slips over a riverbank, it spreads a thin sheet of mud and organic matter across the land. Dead leaves, broken reeds, and microscopic fragments of plant tissue settle into the wet soil. Over many seasons, these materials accumulate in deep layers that trap carbon drawn from the atmosphere by earlier generations of vegetation. In the low oxygen conditions beneath the surface, decomposition slows to a crawl. As new layers form above, the older ones become sealed away, preserving carbon that might otherwise return to the air. Over centuries, this slow burial can create rich, dark soils that hold the memory of ancient forests and long-vanished wetlands. These deposits play a quiet role in regulating global climate, acting as reservoirs that balance the exchange of gases between land and sky. Archaeologists often find traces of early farming communities preserved within these layers, yet the carbon beneath them may have rested in place since before those societies even began. The Colorado has carved canyons that reveal nearly half the planet's age. In the southwestern United States, this river winds through rock formations that preserve an astonishing span of geological history. Layer upon layer of stone rises above the channel, each band representing an era when ancient seas advanced and retreated, deserts formed and vanished, and mountains rose only to be worn down again. The river has followed patient paths through this vast library of stone, deepening its channel over millions of years. The exposed walls tower above, displaying colors that shift from pale cream to deep rust. Fossils of marine creatures appear in some layers, marking a time when the region lay beneath warm, shallow waters. In other strata, ripple marks show where wind sculpted dunes across a long-forgotten landscape. By tracing the order of these layers, geologists can read almost half the history of the planet. The channel itself continues to cut through the rock, grain by grain, revealing new details of Earth's ancient past with every season. Still rivers can mirror night skies with perfect clarity. In windless moments when currents quiet and surfaces smooth into sheets of dark glass, a river can reflect the stars with astonishing precision. Banks lined with trees fade into silhouette, while constellations shimmer on the water. The sky seems to double, creating a sense of depth that blurs the boundary between Earth and the heavens above. Fireflies drifting along the shore may appear as sparks dancing between two worlds. Animals stepping to the water's edge seem suspended in the mirrored landscape. These scenes occur most often on cool nights when the air settles and the heat of the day no longer disturbs the surface. The clarity can reveal even faint stars that are normally swallowed by city light. This quiet phenomenon invites a rare perspective on the universe overhead. It turns a simple river into a natural observatory, where the longest channel becomes a pathway of reflected starlight, stretching far beyond the visible world. The Orinoco connects entire basins through a seasonal channel. During the wet season, when rains fall heavily across northern South America, water levels rise until a natural passage opens between two major river systems. Fish that normally live in separate regions move through this temporary corridor, exploring new feeding grounds and expanding their range. Birds follow the floodwaters to hunt in the expanded wetlands. Plants adapted to fluctuating water levels flourish in the connection zone, creating a mosaic of floating vegetation, shallow pools and submerged forests. When the flood season ends, the channel closes and the rivers return to their usual boundaries. But the influence of the connection lingers. Species that successfully crossed may remain in their new habitats, adding diversity to the ecosystems. Scientists studying these seasonal links gain insight into how water can knit vast landscapes into one breathing system. The passage appears only for a short time each year, yet it holds the power to join two enormous basins into a single watery network. Some rivers build their own natural levees during rising waters. As floods push water across a channel, currents deposit the heaviest sediments closest to the banks. These grains accumulate in low ridges that grow higher with each passing season. Over time, the raised edges help confine the river within its path, forming natural defenses that shape where water can travel. Inside these levees, finer particles settle farther from the channel, creating fertile soils that support agriculture and wild vegetation. The raised banks influence future flood patterns by directing the flow into specific areas. When the river rises again, water may spill through weak points or carve new bridges that redirect channels. These structures emerge without any human construction, built only by the steady work of silt carried during high water. They offer insight into how rivers engineer their own landscapes and how delicate the balance between rising currents and surrounding land can be. The Zambezi creates rainbows that hang in its mist for days. Near a famous waterfall along this river, towering sheets of water plunge into a gorge and explode into clouds of mist that rise high above the surrounding forest. When sunlight strikes the suspended droplets, broad arcs of color appear and sometimes remain visible for hours. On certain mornings, the atmosphere is so dense with moisture that the colors shimmer continuously, shifting with the angle of the sun. Visitors standing at vantage points often witness multiple arcs forming one above another as layers of mist refract the light. The spectacle can continue long after the roar of the falls fades from hearing distance. At night, the glow of the moon may create pale bands of light known as lunar rainbows, an even rarer sight. The combination of powerful water, deep gorges, and ideal weather patterns makes this one of the few places where rainbows can linger for such long periods, creating a scene that feels almost dreamlike. Underwater waterfalls form where heavy rivers sink beneath lighter ones. In certain parts of the ocean, dense currents rich in salt flow beside or beneath lighter flows that originated from freshwater sources. As the heavier water pushes forward, it dives downward in dramatic plunges that resemble waterfalls hidden beneath the surface. These submerged cascades can extend for remarkable distances and influence the movement of marine life and nutrients. Cold, dense streams sliding beneath warmer layers carry oxygen into deep regions that would otherwise remain still. The mixing of these layers can create swirling patterns that generate underwater eddies. Scientists explore these features using instruments that trace temperature and salinity changes as they descend. The currents carve paths along the seafloor, shaping ridges and valleys in much the same way as rivers sculpt land above ground. These flows reveal that unseen rivers exist beneath the ocean, moving with silent power in a world where gravity and density guide the direction of water. Early astronomers used rivers as natural celestial calendars. Long before stone observatories or written charts, communities watched the behavior of rivers to understand the sky. Water levels changed with the seasons, often aligning with the appearance of certain constellations or the rising of particular stars. Floods, low flows, and even subtle shifts in clarity became cues for the turning of the year. People built markers along the banks to compare heights from one season to the next, and those markers became some of the earliest tools for measuring time. Priests or sky watchers learned to associate certain water patterns with lunar cycles and the lengthening or shortening of days. In some regions, the night sky reflected off still surfaces, creating a mirrored map that helped early observers track movements of planets and stars. The river's predictable rhythm offered a steady reference against the changing heavens. Over generations, these observations shaped agricultural calendars, festival dates, and navigation routes. The quiet rise and fall of flowing water became the first guide for understanding how the sky marked the passing of seasons. The Lena has sculpted frozen pillars that stand like natural cathedrals. In the far north, where winter holds the land in deep cold, this river shapes some of the most dramatic formations on the continent. Along certain stretches, towering cliffs rise above the water, carved by frost, wind, and flowing currents. These pillars appear as long rows of stone spires, each separated by narrow gaps that form walls and arches unlike any other place on Earth. During warmer periods, melting ice seeps into cracks and refreezes at night, slowly prying the rock apart. Over long spans of time, entire columns emerge from the eroded cliffs. Snow gathers in their shadows, and migrating birds perch on ledges that overlook a frozen expanse. The river continues to shape the base of these structures, carving channels that reflect the pale light of short northern days. When fog rolls across the water, the pillars rise like ghostly towers. They offer a glimpse into the slow collaboration between ice, stone, and moving water that has sculpted this landscape into its cathedral-like form. Some rivers carry magnetic clues that reveal shifts in Earth's poles. As water erodes rocks upstream, it picks up tiny grains of minerals that contain magnetic particles aligned with the direction of Earth's magnetic field at the time they formed. These grains travel downstream and settle into layers of mud and sand. When these layers become buried, the mineral particles remain locked in the orientation they had when they were deposited. By collecting cores from floodplains or ancient riverbeds, scientists can measure the magnetic direction recorded in each layer. Some strata show orientations that differ dramatically from modern readings, revealing times when Earth's magnetic field shifted or weakened. These signatures help reconstruct the history of geomagnetic reversals and the long-term behavior of the planet's core. They also allow researchers to trace how rivers responded to these global changes, offering insight into climate and environmental conditions from distant eras. The quiet accumulation of sediment becomes a record of the restless currents deep beneath Earth's surface. The Salween flows through landscapes unchanged by major human engineering. In remote regions of Southeast Asia, this long river winds through mountains and valleys that remain strikingly wild. Steep cliffs rise above narrow gorges where the current races through untouched forest. Villages that appear along its banks are often small and built from local materials, leaving only modest footprints on the surrounding land. The absence of large dams or massive diversions allows the river to follow its natural patterns through seasonal rains and drier months. Fish species dependent on free-flowing water still migrate through its channels. Floodplains breathe with the rhythm of rising and falling levels that have shaped them for countless generations. Monsoon clouds gather along the mountainsides, sending fresh torrents into tributaries that rush to join the main channel. Because much of the basin remains unaltered by modern infrastructure, scientists regard it as a rare example of a major river system functioning largely as it did before widespread human development. Estuaries create nurseries for species that later populate entire oceans. Where fresh water mixes with salt water, a unique environment forms that supports life in remarkable ways. Shallow channels, mudflats, and tidal marshes provide shelter for young fish that would struggle to survive in deeper open waters. Nutrients delivered by rivers blend with minerals stirred by incoming tides, creating a rich broth that fuels rapid growth. Crabs scuttle across soft sediment, feeding on microscopic organisms that flourish in the nutrient-rich mix. Birds gather in large numbers to hunt among the tidal pools. Many species use these transitional waters only during their earliest stages of life, gaining strength and size before venturing into the vast ocean. Some creatures return years later to reproduce in the same protected inlets where they once fed as juveniles. These nurseries support global food webs by ensuring that young marine animals have safe places to grow. Without them, many oceanic populations would decline dramatically. The Dnieper once linked forest kingdoms to southern empires. In ancient times, this river stretched across regions where cultures differed in language, customs, and ways of life. Traders followed the current from northern woodlands to southern plains, carrying furs, honey, metal goods, and crafted tools. Boats carved from single logs drifted past settlements built on high bluffs, stopping at markets where goods exchanged hands. As navigation improved, larger vessels carried caravans of merchants who traveled between distant realms. The river became a vital route connecting forest dwellers with powerful states near the Black Sea. Along the banks, fortified towns arose to protect valuable trade. Chronicles from early travelers describe encounters between diverse peoples who met at river crossings to negotiate alliances and agreements. Over time, the waterway helped shape political boundaries and cultural identities. Its role in linking distant societies shows how a single flowing corridor combined entire regions into one connected economic and cultural network. Some fish navigate entire rivers guided only by smell. Certain species possess an extraordinary ability to detect faint chemical traces in the water. As juveniles, they absorb the scent of the stream where they were born, imprinting a signature they can recognize years later. When the time comes to return, they follow these subtle cues across vast distances, detecting changes in the water column as they approach familiar tributaries. Each fork in the path carries its own mixture of minerals and organic compounds, allowing the fish to choose the correct direction. Even small alterations in temperature or flow can be sensed through their specialized organs. This remarkable navigation system helps them locate spawning grounds hidden in remote valleys or highland streams. Researchers studying this behavior have found that the imprint remains astonishingly precise. The fish can distinguish between neighboring tributaries by differences so subtle that instruments struggle to measure them. Their journeys reveal a sensory world shaped by chemical signals that most creatures never perceive. The Murray-Darling Basin holds ancient riverbeds buried beneath modern ones. In the interior of Australia, sediment from long-vanished rivers lies hidden beneath younger channels. These buried waterways once carried water across a landscape shaped by shifting climates and retreating inland seas. For the thousands of years, their beds filled with sand, clay, and silt as new rivers formed above them. Using ground-penetrating tools, scientists have traced these ancient paths beneath fields, plains, and modern floodplains. Some of the old channels hold mineral deposits that reveal how past climates influenced erosion and rainfall. Fossilized roots, pollen, and shells preserved within the sediments show which plants and animals lived along these forgotten banks. The overlying rivers continue to shape the region, but the unseen network beneath them tells a deeper story. It reveals how landscapes evolve through cycles of dryness and renewal, and how waterways shift to follow new gradients while leaving their older roots entombed in the earth. Tiny air bubbles in river ice preserve clues about ancient atmospheres. When winter grips a river and the surface freezes into clear sheets, small pockets of air become trapped inside the forming ice. These bubbles hold the chemical signature of the atmosphere at the moment they were sealed. As snow piles on top, the lower layers are pressed into solid masses that preserve these bubbles for long periods. Scientists who retrieve old ice segments can measure the composition of gases within the pockets. The ratios of oxygen and carbon dioxide reveal information about temperature, vegetation, and environmental conditions at the time the ice formed. Sometimes volcanic ash appears in thin streaks, marking distant eruptions that released particles across the world. Studying these frozen samples offers insight into regional climate patterns and how river valleys responded to periods of extreme cold or warmth. Each bubble is a tiny archive of air that once drifted above the water before becoming locked into winter's transparent grip. The Fraser sustains salmon runs on a scale seen almost nowhere else. Along the western edge of Canada, this river supports migrations that span hundreds of miles. Each year, salmon return from the ocean and swim against the current toward the streams where they first emerged from gravel beds. The journey demands impressive strength as they leap over obstacles, push through rapids, and navigate changing depths. Their arrival transforms the ecosystem. Eagles gather in large numbers along the banks to feed. Bears wade into the shallows to catch fish moving through narrow channels. Forests benefit as nutrients from the salmon enter the soil after the fish complete their life cycle. Communities living along the river have long depended on the seasonal return, shaping fishing traditions, stories, and ceremonies around the migration. The sheer number of fish passing through creates a spectacle of movement and color. This great pulse of life reveals how a single river can support a web of creatures that rely on its dependable rhythm. Some rivers creep sideways across land faster than they flow downstream. On wide floodplains where the land barely tilts toward the sea, the movement of water becomes slow, steady, and surprisingly mischievous. Instead of charging forward, the current pulls at its own outer banks, gnawing at soil and roots with persistent pressure. On the inside of each bend, the flow becomes gentle enough for grains of sand and silt to settle, building new land little by little. This uneven work creates loops that do not simply drift downstream, but slide sideways across the plain. Over decades, a curve that once pointed one way may lean in the opposite direction as the outer bank retreats and the inner bank grows. Small lakes form where old bends are abandoned, and strips of rich earth appear where new ones take shape. Villages that once sat far from the water sometimes wake to find the channel creeping closer with each passing season. Entire landscapes become quiet tapestries of shifting lines, shaped by a side-winding river that prefers to wander across its valley rather than rush toward the ocean. The Seine has been reshaped for centuries to suit growing cities. Along this celebrated European river, the story of human settlement unfolds in layers of engineering, adaptation, and steady transformation. Early communities relied on natural banks, shallow crossings, and gentle islands, choosing these features as safe places to build shelters and markets. As towns grew larger, they carved new quays to tame seasonal floods and created stone embankments that gave boats cleaner passage. Over generations, bends were trimmed, side channels were redirected, and ferries gave way to bridges that altered the flow in subtle but lasting ways. Builders deepened the riverbed to support trade vessels carrying grain, wine, textiles, and countless other goods. Later, entire banks were refashioned to create boulevards, walkways, and harbors. Yet beneath the polished surfaces of the modern riverfront lies a flowing memory of every previous shape the water once held. Even today, rainfall, tides, and the quiet weight of sediment continue to influence the river's rhythm, carrying forward a long conversation between the city and the current that passes through its heart. River silt provided pigments for some of the earliest human art. Long before minerals were mined from deep veins or manufactured colors were created in workshops, early artists turned to riverbanks for their pigments. After floods receded, fine layers of clay and iron-rich mud settled along the edges of the channel. These deposits dried into soft, crumbly material that could be gathered by hand and crushed into powder. Mixed with animal fat, plant oils, or water, the powder transformed into vibrant paints that clung to stone walls and carved surfaces. Some pigments produced warm reds and browns, while others offered pale yellows or muted grays. In certain regions, people learned which layers yielded which colors, returning to the same banks season after season. The paintings created with these natural pigments have endured for thousands of years, surviving in caves, overhangs, and rock shelters. Through them, we glimpse animals, rituals, stories, and imagined worlds preserved in colors carried first by the river. Each brush of pigment links ancient creativity with the steady work of moving water. Some rivers glow under certain light because of organic matter. In a few remarkable waterways, the water itself takes on an unusual radiance when illuminated under the right conditions. This gentle glow is created by dissolved organic material carried from forests, wetlands, and decaying vegetation. These molecules alter the way light scatters through the water, especially when the moon is bright or the sun sits low at the horizon. The surface can appear to shimmer with soft copper, gold, or greenish tones, shifting as currents pass beneath. When plankton or other tiny organisms drift through these nutrient-rich conditions, they add subtle flecks of brightness that enhance the effect. The glow is most noticeable in calm stretches where ripples do not break the reflection. Scientists study these waters to track how nutrients move from land into rivers and how ecosystems respond to seasonal changes. For people living nearby, the gentle nocturnal shine often becomes part of local lore, adding a sense of quiet mystery to water that appears to hold its own inner light. The Tarim has preserved desert mummies through its unusual hydrology. In one of the driest expanses on the planet, A river fed by distant snowmelt flows through basins surrounded by salt flats and dunes. Ancient communities once relied on its narrow ribbon of water to grow crops and pasture animals. When individuals from these cultures were buried, the combination of dry conditions, mineral-rich soils, and the subtle influence of groundwater slowed natural decay. Textiles, wooden objects, and even hair and facial features remained astonishingly intact for thousands of years. Some burial sites eventually fell out of use as the river shifted course, leaving them stranded in the desert where wind covered them under layers of dust. When explorers uncovered these resting places, they found clothing woven with intricate detail, tools that revealed daily life, and remains that offered clues about migration and ancestry. The preservation arose not from deliberate effort, but from the unique interplay between river moisture, arid climate, and the quiet chemistry of the surrounding land. Flood pulses in some rivers follow rhythms set by faraway oceans. Certain tropical and subtropical waterways rise and fall in patterns influenced not only by local rainfall, but by vast cycles occurring in distant seas. Changes in ocean temperatures alter atmospheric currents that travel across continents. These shifting winds determine where storms will gather, how long they last, and how much rain will fall over a river basin. Even rivers located deep inland can reflect these global patterns, rising higher during certain multi-year phases and retreating during others. Layers of sediment store evidence of these rhythms, with alternating bands of fine and coarse material corresponding to wetter and drier cycles. Communities living along such rivers often develop traditional knowledge shaped by these long patterns, recognizing that water abundance follows a repeating pulse. Modern research confirms that these distant connections carry remarkable influence, linking the breadth of faraway oceans to the heartbeat of inland rivers. Each flood pulse becomes part of a larger global story written by air, water, and shifting climate. The Ebro once fed irrigation systems that still function today. Across the Iberian Peninsula, early agricultural societies built intricate channels that guided river water to fields spread across dry foothills and terraces. They carefully chose routes that balanced gravity, soil type, and seasonal flow, allowing crops to thrive even during hot months. Many of the original paths remained so well designed that later generations adopted and maintained them, rather than replacing them entirely. Stone-lined canals bring water to orchards, vineyards, and farmlands that depend on predictable distribution. Small gates, carved from wood or shaped from stone, still regulate the amount of water released into each section. Over time, some routes have been expanded or reinforced, but the underlying layout reflects knowledge stretching back centuries. These systems demonstrate how carefully crafted water management can endure through wars, cultural changes, and shifting boundaries, all sustained by the river that continues to flow past fields shaped by human bowel, patience, and ingenuity. Braided rivers shift paths in patterns that look almost alive. In broad valleys filled with gravel and coarse sediment, some rivers refuse to follow a single defined channel. Instead, the current splits into many strands that weave around temporary bars built from pebbles and sand. One branch may deepen after spring snowmelt, drawing most of the flow, only to shrink as a neighboring channel gathers strength during later rains. Floods rearrange the entire pattern, sweeping aside old bars and laying down new ones in completely different places. From above, the shifting network resembles a braided rope, constantly reworked by the movement of water. Plants struggle to survive on these unstable surfaces, and only the hardiest species manage to anchor themselves long enough to stabilize a patch. As the years pass, these islands of vegetation can merge into larger surfaces that eventually become part of the floodplain. The ever-changing design reveals the restless spirit of water when it has space to wander freely across its valley floor. Islands in the Irrawaddy can appear and vanish within a lifetime. Along this major river, the movement of sediment is so dynamic that entire landforms rise from the current and disappear again within a few decades. During high flows, sand and silt accumulate in quiet eddies, forming small patches of ground that grow with each passing season. Over time, shrubs take root, and families sometimes plant crops on the nutrient-rich surface. Yet the very forces that created these islands continue to reshape them. A shift in the current can erode the foundation, sending the land downstream, grain by grain. Houses and fields may need to be relocated as the river rearranges its pathways. Locals often build lightweight structures and maintain flexible farming practices to adapt to the constant change. From the sky, the islands form a mosaic of shapes that appear differently every few years. Each one is a reminder of how swiftly a river can sculpt its own geography, offering new land and taking it back with unhurried certainty. Rivers can carve natural stone arches across centuries of turbulence. Where flowing water meets cliffs with fractures or softer layers, the process of erosion can create extraordinary shapes. Small hollows begin where swirling currents push pebbles against weak points in the rock. As seasons pass, these hollows expand into alcoves with smooth ceilings and walls shaped by countless rotations of suspended stones. If erosion occurs on opposite sides of a rocky spur, the two growing cavities may eventually meet, leaving behind a bridge of stone suspended above the channel. Light streams through the resulting arch, casting shifting patterns onto the water below. Some formations stand for thousands of years, while others collapse when the remaining rock becomes too thin to support its own weight. These features reveal the quiet persistence of moving water, a force capable of sculpting monumental structures grain by grain. Each arch becomes a window into the partnership between rock and river, shaped not by sudden violence, but by long and patient motion. The Tagus carries human history from prehistoric camps to modern cities. Along this ancient river, evidence of human presence stretches across an incredible span of time. Early groups once gathered on its banks to hunt, fish, and collect materials from the surrounding plains. Stone tools, hearths, and fragments of pottery still lie hidden beneath layers of soil shaped by repeated floods. As centuries passed, new cultures built fortified settlements on cliffs overlooking the water, using the height to watch for travelers and trading parties. Later, communities constructed bridges, mills, and riverside markets that turned the valley into a thriving corridor of commerce. The river guided the placement of farms, shaped growing towns, and eventually influenced the design of cities that rose along its course. Every shift in population left traces that settled into mud layers and flood terraces. Modern residents walk streets built over the same paths, once followed by traders and herders who navigated the valley long before maps existed. The river continues its quiet movement toward the sea, carrying the memory of every era that lived beside it. Some rivers flow under frozen lakes and emerge warm downstream. In areas where winter creates thick sheets of ice across entire lakes, flowing water can continue beneath these frozen surfaces. As the current enters the lake, it dives under the ice and follows the deepest paths, insulated from the cold air above. The water retains the temperature it carried from upstream, continuing its journey without freezing. Once it leaves the lake, it returns to open channels that may be warmer than the surrounding landscape suggests. Steam can rise from the surface as the air chills the exposed current. Wildlife often gathers near these warmer stretches, using the open water as a refuge when everything else lies silent under winter frost. This unusual pattern reveals how the movement of water can maintain its energy even when the world above lies locked in cold. The lake becomes a temporary ceiling rather than a frozen barrier, allowing the river to continue its quiet path beneath a sheet of ice that hides its motion from view. The Niger creates a hidden inland delta deep in the desert. Far from any ocean, this remarkable river spreads into a vast maze of channels, marshes, and seasonal lakes, forming one of the most unexpected wetlands on the planet. When rains arrive in distant highlands, the water travels across great distances before reaching the arid plains. Instead of narrowing into a tight channel, the flow slows and fans outward, filling depressions in the landscape and creating a patchwork of flooded grasslands. Herds of animals migrate toward these waters, following ancient paths that lead to fresh grazing grounds. Villages rely on fish drawn to the newly formed pools, and farmers cultivate crops in the rich soils exposed as the waters recede. Birds arrive from across continents to nest and feed in the wetlands. The entire region transforms with the seasons, shifting between wide sheets of water and fertile plains that hum with life. The delta's existence in such a dry environment demonstrates how a single river can bring abundance to a place where rain is rare and the desert dominates the horizon. Some rivers roar with thunder as water collides with underground caverns. In certain landscapes where limestone or volcanic rock lies beneath the surface, flowing water encounters pockets and chambers hidden within the ground. The river plunges into these openings, striking the walls with tremendous force. The impact creates deep rumbling sounds that echo through tunnels and travel to the surface as a low, thunder-like vibration. During high flows, the roar intensifies as more water enters the caverns, filling the air with a resonant trembling that can be felt through the soil. These underground passages shape the movement of the river, guiding some of the flow into unseen channels before releasing it back into daylight farther downstream. Over time, the constant collision enlarges the caverns, carving intricate passages that twist and bend beneath the valley floor. Explorers who enter these systems hear the distant rumble growing louder as they approach the hidden river. The sound becomes a reminder of the power stored within flowing water and the unseen landscapes it shapes in darkness. The Vistula once carried amber across ancient Europe. Along the length of this river, long-forgotten trade routes once connected coastal communities with distant inland settlements. People gathered golden resin from beaches and forest floors near the northern shores, where natural processes washed or exposed these treasures. Traders transported the resin by boat and along river paths, carrying it toward regions where it was valued for decoration, rituals, and symbolic meaning. The river served as a natural guide, winding past villages that became exchange points for goods, stories, and ideas. Over generations, the trade expanded, linking faraway cultures that sought the warm glow of the resin for art and ornament. Archaeological finds near former banks reveal beads, carvings, and other objects shaped from this material, preserved in burial sites and settlements that faded long ago. The river, flowing endlessly toward the sea, once acted as the main artery for this movement of goods, supporting networks that spanned great distances and shaped early European commerce. Some rivers hold fossils from eras when continents were still joined. In remote valleys and eroded cliffs along certain rivers, layers of sediment preserve remains from times when Earth's landmasses formed a single vast supercontinent. Ancient fish, early reptiles, and long-vanished plants lie entombed in rock that once settled at the bottom of lakes and floodplains. As rivers carve through these layers, they expose fragments that reveal the forms of creatures that lived in climates now separated by oceans. The position of these fossils helps scientists trace how continental plates drifted apart and how ecosystems changed as shorelines shifted. Some discoveries include trackways pressed into soft mud that hardened into stone, marking the passage of animals that walked along ancient riverbanks. Each fragment rests within a layer that tells its own story about rainfall, vegetation, and life from distant ages. The river becomes a moving window into a world that existed long before any human presence, carrying traces of eras that reshaped the entire planet. The Po feeds floodplains that form some of Europe's richest farmland. Across northern Italy, this river spreads water and sediment across wide plains that have been cultivated for countless generations. The soils are deep, dark, and fertile due to the steady deposition of mineral-rich silt carried from mountains far to the west. Farmers learned to guide seasonal waters into channels that refreshed the land without washing away crops. When the river rises after snowmelt or heavy rains, it nourishes fields of grains, fruits, and vegetables that thrive in the well-structured earth. Villages grew alongside these productive lands, developing traditions tied to planting, harvest, and irrigation. The floodplain also supports wetlands that shelter birds and aquatic life, creating a mosaic of natural and cultivated spaces. This combination of seasonal flooding, nutrient-rich sediment, and human skill has shaped a landscape known for remarkable abundance. The river continues to bring the raw ingredients for growth, sustaining a region where agriculture, culture, and water have long been intertwined. Some rivers cut off their own meanders and leave hidden lakes behind. As looping bends widen over time, the outer edges erode more quickly than the inner ones, creating curves that inch farther apart with each passing season. During a major flood, the river may surge across the narrow neck of a loop, carving a faster shortcut to continue its journey. The old bend becomes separated from the main channel as the new course stabilizes. What remains is a crescent-shaped lake, often concealed by reeds, trees, and quiet marshes. These lakes can host unique communities of plants and animals that thrive in still water sheltered from the main current. Over years, sediment gathers in the remaining curve, gradually filling the basin and transforming it into a meadow or wetland. From above, these features appear as graceful scars marking the river's earlier path. The abandoned loops reveal how moving water chooses new routes that suit its changing energy, leaving behind hidden pockets of calm shaped by moments of dramatic redirection. The Mackenzie delivers vast freshwater streams into the Arctic Ocean. Flowing across broad northern landscapes, this major river carries immense volumes of water toward the icy seas. The current gathers strength from tributaries that drain forests, tundra, and wetlands stretching across thousands of miles. As the river approaches the coast, it spreads into a wide delta filled with branching channels that weave between marshes and low islands. The freshwater entering the Arctic helps shape currents that influence sea ice formation and the movement of marine life. Migrating birds flock to the delta during summer, feeding on insects and nesting among the grasses. Fish travel through the network of channels, moving between inland waters and coastal zones. Seasonal changes transform the region from frozen silence to a landscape buzzing with life. The river's immense flow serves as a vital link between interior ecosystems and the Northern Ocean, carrying nutrients, sediments, and energy across an environment defined by cold, light, and dramatic cycles of growth and rest. Some rivers release minerals that turn water vivid shades of blue and green. In certain watersheds, the surrounding rocks contain minerals that dissolve into the current, altering the color of the water in striking ways. When sunlight strikes these mineral-rich flows, the light scatters into vibrant hues that change with angle, depth, and season. Turquoise, milky blue, emerald green, and soft jade tones may appear in calm pools or wide bends. Glacial flour, a fine powder created when ice grinds stone into tiny particles, can lend a bright opacity that enhances the color. In other cases, dissolved limestone or volcanic minerals produce clarity that reveals stones on the riverbed shining beneath the surface. Local wildlife adapts to these conditions, finding shelter among rocks that glow in shifting colors. Travelers often describe these rivers as otherworldly, drawn to their unusual brightness. The vivid water becomes a natural record of the geology surrounding it, reflecting the chemistry of the land through color alone. The Tiber preserves Roman artifacts deep in its mud layers. As this historic river wound through the heart of an ancient empire, countless objects slipped from bridges, docks, markets, and busy riverbanks. Coins dropped from pockets during festivals. Pottery shattered and fell into the current. Tools, sandals, decorative pieces, religious offerings, and carved tokens drifted downward during both ordinary days and moments of celebration. Floods lifted whole chunks of riverbank from older streets and bridges, depositing them farther downstream where they settled beneath thick layers of silt. Over centuries, these buried fragments became part of the river's memory. Each flood laid down fresh mud that sealed objects deeper, protecting them from decay. Excavators working along the modern banks sometimes uncover these lost pieces, revealing glimpses of daily life in the bustling city that once ruled vast territories. The river safeguarded items that people never expected to preserve. Its slow accumulation of layered mud turned simple debris into a hidden archive, waiting quietly beneath the shifting current. Some rivers sink into limestone and travel underground for miles. In regions where limestone forms the bedrock, water exploits natural cracks, dissolving the stone grain by grain and carving passageways beneath the surface. A flowing current that appears steady and ordinary may suddenly disappear into a sinkhole, slipping into a world of darkness where daylight never reaches. Once underground, the water follows winding corridors shaped by ages of steady erosion. It moves through chambers with towering ceilings and low tunnels that echo with distant currents. As the river journeys through this hidden network, it leaves mineral deposits on the walls, building smooth surfaces that glimmer under lantern light. Eventually, the current emerges at a spring farther downhill, sometimes warmer or cooler than expected depending on the subterranean route it traveled. The landscape above appears unchanged, yet beneath the soil lies a secret river system, humming through stone. These underground journeys reveal how water can sculpt vast realms that remain unseen by most who walk the surface. The Darling holds billabongs that store water long after floods fade. Across stretches of dry country, this river creates pools shaped by seasonal rhythms. When rains swell the river, water spreads across surrounding land, filling depressions that become isolated once the flow retreats. These pools, known for their stillness and longevity, create life-sustaining oases as the months grow hotter. Birds gather at their edges, animals drink at dawn and dusk, and plants that require reliable moisture take root along the banks. Some pools remain connected to the river during wetter seasons, while others linger independently, supported by clay-lined basins that prevent water from sinking too quickly into the earth. As water levels decline, fish sometimes survive in the deeper hollows, enduring periods of scarcity until the next flood renews the connection. The billabongs turn an unpredictable river into a resilient system capable of supporting organisms through long dry spells. They offer a quiet testament to how moving water shapes environments beyond its own banks. Natural whirlpools form in some rivers and shift with the seasons. Where currents collide with hidden obstacles or where riverbeds form sudden depressions, rotating columns of water can appear like slow-turning spirals. These swirling formations draw floating leaves and sticks toward their center before releasing them downstream. Their power depends on the season. During high flows, the added force of runoff sharpens the rotation, deepening the swirl and drawing the water downward with greater energy. When the river runs low, the whirlpools may shrink or vanish entirely, leaving only a faint ripple to hint at their former presence. Fish often gather near the edges where nutrients swirl upward. The sound of shifting currents reveals the subtle motions taking place beneath the surface. Though they appear almost alive, these spirals follow simple physics shaped by changing water levels and hidden contours. Their existence becomes a reminder that rivers hold their own quiet machinery, adjusting with the seasons as if guided by an unseen hand. The Thames contains layers of history reaching back to ancient hunters. Long before a great city stood along its banks, this river flowed through open grasslands where early humans gathered to hunt and forage. Their footsteps pressed into mud that hardened during dry seasons and later became buried beneath newer layers of river sediment. Stone tools, broken spear points, and fragments of animal bone settled into the riverbed as groups moved across the landscape following herds. With time, new civilizations built wooden walkways, boats, and riverside structures whose remains also slip beneath the water. Later still, bustling markets and thriving ports added objects lost during daily work, ceremonies, and storms. As each era passed, floods covered these traces with fresh mud that sealed them away. Today, archaeologists uncover items that reveal shifting cultures, stories, and technologies. The river keeps the memory of every community that shaped its banks, storing their traces beneath layers accumulated by centuries of flowing water. Some rivers cross fault lines and carry evidence of ancient quakes. Where a river intersects a fracture in the Earth's crust, the landscape can shift beneath the water in sudden and dramatic ways. When a fault moves during a quake, the riverbed may rise or fall, altering the direction of the flow without warning. Channels can be displaced sideways, leaving offset riverbanks that reveal how far the land slid in a single moment. Sediment layers record these events as abrupt breaks where deposits tilt or fold. Over time, plants and animals recolonize the altered shoreline, creating a patchwork of old and new surfaces that blend into a single scene. Scientists reading these clues can reconstruct the timing and strength of long-past quakes. Though the river continues to flow with calm persistence, its very shape carries the imprint of geological upheaval. The water becomes a witness to movements that reshape the continent beneath it, holding subtle testimony in its redirected path. The Loire moves sandbars that drift like wandering islands. Across this river's broad shallows, loose sand from distant mountains gathers into wide bars that shift with the seasons. High water carries grains from one place to another, sculpting fresh shapes where the current slows. As levels drop, new islands appear in the center of the channel, rising just enough to catch sunlight and support the first hardy plants. Birds land on these temporary havens and use them as resting places during long migrations. Some bars split into branching forms, while others merge into larger structures that last for several years. Yet nothing remains fixed. A heavy storm, a high spring flood, or a subtle change in the current can reshape the landscape overnight. From above, the drifting bars form patterns that resemble migrating dunes. The river treats them as part of its restless design, constantly reworking the boundaries of water and land in a gentle dance of movement. Some rivers cut through ancient lava and reveal glassy, frozen flows. In volcanic regions where molten rock once surged across the land, rivers later carved channels through hardened lava fields. As the water bit into the dark stone, it exposed smooth surfaces formed when the lava cooled rapidly and preserved its texture like frozen fire. These glassy layers shimmer under sunlight and feel surprisingly sleek to the touch. Deeper cuts reveal bubbles trapped within the rock, remnants of gases escaping as the molten material hardened ages ago. The river's erosion uncovers swirls and ropes created by the cooling pattern, producing natural artworks shaped by heat and later revealed by water. Some stretches contain fractured columns formed when the cooling lava cracked in geometric patterns. Over time, sand and gravel polish these surfaces even more. The river's steady work brings ancient volcanic moments back into view, creating a meeting point between fiery origins and flowing water. The Senegal once supported powerful kingdoms along its fertile banks. Where this river winds through Western Africa, its seasonal floods enriched the soil and allowed communities to cultivate crops in an otherwise challenging climate. Early settlements grew into trading centers as merchants traveled along the waterway exchanging goods, stories, and knowledge. These towns eventually formed into kingdoms known for craftsmanship, agriculture, and regional influence. The river provided fish, fertile land, and a natural route for travel that linked distant territories. Cultural traditions flourished beside its waters, expressed through music, textiles, and oral histories that still echo through the region today. As climate patterns shifted and political landscapes changed, the prominence of these kingdoms rose and fell, yet the traces of their influence remain in archaeological sites and local heritage. The river served as a foundation for societies that shaped regional identity for generations, carrying the memory of their achievements toward the sea. Some rivers hold springs that rise pure from deep aquifers. In valleys where underground reservoirs lie beneath layers of rock, the pressure within these hidden stores can force clear water upward into the main channel. These springs emerge with remarkable clarity and steady temperature, often creating pools that appear almost glass-like in their stillness. The water may carry minerals unique to the aquifer, giving it a distinct taste or subtle color. Fish gather near the cool outflow, and plants thrive along the edges where conditions remain stable even during seasonal changes. In times of drought, the steady contribution from the springs helps maintain the river's flow when other sources diminish. Travelers throughout history have relied on these reliable points of fresh water, building paths and settlements nearby. The springs reveal a connection between deep geological layers and surface ecosystems, showing how water can travel long underground journeys before rising into the sunlight once more. The Omo holds fossils that changed our view of human origins. Along the shifting courses of this East African river, layers of sediment have quietly stored the remains of early humans and the environments they once inhabited. Erosion brought by seasonal floods exposes bones that rested undisturbed for vast stretches of time. These discoveries reveal details about ancient bodies, tools, and the landscapes that shaped early survival. Some fossils show evidence of adaptation to open grasslands, while others point to communities living near wetlands and forested patches. Together they paint a picture of early human life that is far more diverse than once believed. The river carries new sediments each year, burying fresh discoveries even as it uncovers old ones. Archaeologists sift through gravel and mud to collect fragments that help refine timelines and migration patterns. The valley surrounding the water holds an unparalleled record of ancient life, and each find deepens our understanding of humanity's earliest chapters. The river continues its quiet erosion, slowly revealing pages of a story written long before recorded history began. Iron-rich rivers can stain entire beaches a deep red. In certain regions where water flows through soils rich in iron-bearing minerals, particles carried downstream slowly accumulate along banks, deltas, and coastal shores. When these fine sediments settle in calm shallows, they oxidize upon contact with air and sunlight, turning vivid shades of crimson and rust. Waves deposit this iron-tinted material across sand, creating patterns that stretch for surprising distances. The color changes with moisture, appearing darker when wet and brighter as it dries beneath the sun. Birds walking along the shore leave pale tracks behind them, and plant roots grow through layers that shift from ochre at the surface to deeper reds below. Over time, storms move the sediment into new formations, yet the color persists because fresh material continues to wash downstream. These vivid landscapes reveal how geology influences the character of a river and how minerals carried in quiet suspension can shape the appearance of entire coastlines. The Hudson reverses direction twice a day under the pull of tides. Far upriver from the coast, the influence of the ocean remains strong enough to alter the direction of flow. As the tide rises, seawater pushes inland, slowing the current before forcing it to run upstream for several hours. Boats moored along the banks gently turn as the direction shifts. As the tide retreats, the river resumes its normal path toward the sea, carrying sediments and nutrients through the estuary. This repeated cycle creates a dynamic environment where fresh water mixes with salt, nurturing species adapted to brackish conditions. Fish use the shifting currents to move between feeding areas, taking advantage of the rising tide to travel inland. The patterns of reversal also shape the distribution of mud layers along the banks, depositing fine sediment during the upward surge and removing it during the outward flow. The river becomes a living partnership between land and ocean, guided by the steady rhythm of the moon. Some rivers form sheer cliffs that collapse in sudden, dramatic falls. Where a river cuts into soft rock beneath a protective, harder layer, the upper sections of the bank remain stable for long periods, while the lower portion is worn away by the current. Over time, gravity weakens the unsupported surface until entire slabs detach and crash into the water below. These collapses often occur without warning, sending plumes of spray upward and rolling waves across the channel. The freshly exposed wall reveals patterns of sediment, shell fragments, and mineral veins that once lay hidden deep within the riverbank. Birds and animals that relied on the old cliff must adapt to the transformed landscape, finding new perches and burrows in the altered terrain. As seasons pass, vegetation slowly reclaims the bare rock until the process begins again. These dramatic events demonstrate the constant reshaping power of flowing water, which continues its slow carving even when the surface appears peaceful and unmoving. The Kaveri shapes sacred landscapes honored for centuries. Along this revered river, communities have built temples, shrines, and ceremonial sites that draw visitors across seasons and generations. Pilgrims travel along winding paths to reach the water, collecting handfuls of it during rituals that have been practiced for centuries. The river irrigates fertile plains that support orchards, rice fields, and groves of trees planted long ago by early settlers. Fishermen navigate quiet bends at dawn, while celebrants gather at certain shallows to mark festivals tied to lunar cycles and harvests. The surrounding forests shelter wildlife that thrives in the moist environment created by the river's steady presence. Stories passed down through oral tradition describe how the water once guided kings, poets, and spiritual leaders who lived near its banks. Every generation adds its own layers of meaning, and the entire region reflects a deep connection between flowing water and cultural identity. The river remains a living thread binding people, land, and history together. Straight rivers can reveal ancient rifts hidden beneath their channels. When a river follows an unusually direct path for long distances, the alignment can indicate a deeper structure beneath the surface. The land may contain a fracture or rift formed by past tectonic movement. Water naturally follows areas where the ground has shifted or weakened, creating a channel that appears almost engineered in its precision. Over time, erosion carves deeper into these hidden features, revealing cliffs or terraces that mirror the underlying fracture. Sediment layers on either side often differ, reflecting the distinct geological histories of the separated blocks of land. Birds and animals follow the straight corridor during migration, using the clear direction as a natural guide. Scientists study the alignment to reconstruct the long history of the region, interpreting how continents once moved and how faults interacted. The river becomes a visible expression of an ancient event that shaped the land long before any human eyes witnessed it. The Red River holds clays that slide and shift like liquid earth. Along this river's banks, layers of fine clay absorb moisture during rainy periods until they swell and become remarkably slick. As the water content rises, the clay behaves almost like a slow-moving fluid, causing entire sections of bank to slump and drift. Trees tilt and grasses fold as the ground glides toward the channel, creating a landscape that appears to shift with its own quiet momentum. During dry seasons, the clay hardens into cracked surfaces that resemble pottery left in the sun. The constant cycle of swelling and shrinking influences the river's shape and contributes to its ever-changing course. Animals that burrow into the banks must adjust their tunnels each year as soil movement alters their pathways. The river reshapes itself through these soft landslides, demonstrating how even the gentlest material can direct the path of flowing water. Insect swarms along some rivers feed entire ecosystems. During certain seasons, vast numbers of insects rise from the water's surface to mate and spread across nearby habitats. These swarms form clouds that shimmer in early light and drift along the banks like living mist. Birds gather in large numbers to feast on the abundant food, while fish leap from the water to catch insects hovering just above the surface. Spiders build webs along reeds, capturing individuals carried by the breeze. Mammals forage near the river's edge during peak activity, drawn by the richness of the moment. When the insects complete their life cycle, their bodies fall into the water and decompose, releasing nutrients that fertilize aquatic plants and feed microorganisms. This seasonal pulse supports an entire web of life, linking air, water, and land. The swarming creates a brief yet powerful surge of energy that shapes the growth and behavior of countless species throughout the valley. The Dreamy forms emerald pools that mirror whole forests. Where this river slows between limestone cliffs and wooded hills, deep basins allow the water to settle into breathtaking clarity. Minerals carried from surrounding rocks scatter sunlight in ways that give the pools rich emerald tones. Trees leaning over the banks appear doubled, reflected so perfectly that branches seem to reach both skyward and downward. Fish glide through shifting beams of light, sometimes visible far below the surface due to the exceptional transparency. The quiet atmosphere invites birds and animals to drink along the margins, where the water laps gently against stone. Seasonal rains may raise the level, but the clarity returns as sediments settle once the flow calms. Villages along the river regard these pools as places of beauty and respite, and travelers often pause to watch the colors shift in changing light. The stillness highlights the contrast between the quiet pools and the surrounding forest that breathes with wind and wildlife. Some rivers create slotted stones that sing when water passes through. In rare stretches where loose stones settle into formations with narrow openings, flowing water passes through the gaps in a way that produces soft musical tones. The shape and size of each opening determines the pitch, while the speed of the current controls the rhythm and intensity. During flood conditions, the harmony becomes louder, echoing through nearby valleys. When dry seasons arrive, the sound softens into a faint whisper. The stones themselves may be smoothed by years of tumbling downstream before settling into these precise positions. Each flood rearranges a few pieces, altering the melody slightly. Animals pause near the banks when the tones are strongest, perhaps drawn by curiosity. People who live nearby speak of hearing gentle hums at dusk when the river is neither high nor low. The phenomenon reveals how simple forces of motion and shape can join to create natural music in places where no human instrument exists. The São Francisco hides canyons with their own private climates. Along its long journey across varied landscapes, this Brazilian river enters regions where ancient rock has been carved into towering walls. Between these walls lie narrow corridors where sunlight arrives at gentle angles and wind passes in filtered currents. Within these protected spaces, temperatures remain surprisingly stable, creating small climates distinct from the surrounding plains. Plants that struggle in open terrain find refuge in shaded bends where humidity lingers and night air cools slowly. Animals travel through the canyons to feed and nest in spaces sheltered from harsh seasonal conditions. Water pools at the base of cliffs, nourishing pockets of vegetation that appear vibrant even during dry months. The rock walls hold stories of erosion that began long before human settlement, shaped by the steady push of water against resistant stone. These canyon climates form a mosaic of hidden worlds, each with its own character, protected by immense cliffs that guide the river forward while sheltering life along its course. Some rivers carry seeds that germinate only after long downstream journeys. When seasonal rains feed forests and grasslands, countless seeds fall into the water and begin a remarkable passage toward faraway banks. The movement of the current tumbles them gently, softening their outer layers and preparing them for the moment when they finally reach a resting place. Some seeds require this lengthy travel to activate their internal chemistry. Others need sunlight filtered through moving water or the slight abrasion caused by brushing against sand and stones. Once they drift into calm shallows, they settle into soft mud and take root, sprouting in places far from the parent plant. Birds and animals soon gather near the fresh growth, drawn to the new sources of food and shelter. Over years, these plants shape entirely new patches of habitat along distant stretches of the river. The process reveals how water can act as a gardener that carries the potential for new forests and meadows hidden within its own currents. The Guadalquivir holds archaeological layers beneath its modern course. From ancient Iberian settlements to later Roman cities and medieval ports, generations of people built their lives along this river. Each era left behind objects that gradually found their way into the water. Pottery rolled from market stalls, tools slipped from boats, and fragments of walls broke apart during floods. As the river meandered from one bank to another, it covered these remnants with layers of mud that thickened each season. Beneath the modern channel lie buried walkways, forgotten docks, and wooden beams preserved by low oxygen conditions. Archaeologists carefully map these layers to reconstruct the shifting course of the river and the communities that grew beside it. Over time, the water became an enormous archive storing moments from countless centuries. The discovery of each item adds nuance to stories once known only through written records. The river's quiet flow masks a deep record of human history waiting patiently beneath its bed. Mud volcanoes can form along rivers rich in sediment. In places where loose sediments bury pockets of gas or water under pressure, the land becomes primed for unusual activity. When a river deposits thick layers of clay and silt, the accumulated weight can force trapped fluids to seek escape routes. They push upward until they break through the surface in a rising mound that releases mud in slow, steady pulses. These formations resemble small volcanoes, but contain no molten rock. Instead, they expel cool mud that spreads into flat cones shaped by repeated eruptions. The surrounding landscape becomes mottled with new textures and colors as each pulse adds fresh material. Plants struggle to grow on the unstable ground, leaving patches of bare earth surrounded by thriving vegetation beyond the influence of the mound. Over months or years, the mud flows harden as they dry, preserving patterns that mark each phase of activity. These natural phenomena reveal hidden pressures beneath the soil and the intricate relationship between rivers, sediments, and underground forces. The Amur creates natural pathways used by migrating wildlife. Stretching across vast northern landscapes, This river forms a continuous ribbon of habitat that links seasonal feeding grounds, breeding sites, and areas of shelter. Animals follow its banks during long migrations, using the water as a guide that leads them through forests, wetlands, and open plains. Birds rest along its shores as they travel between continents, finding abundant food among the reeds and shallow pools. Fish move through its deep channels to reach spawning grounds far upstream. Large mammals cross the river at fords that have been used for countless generations, returning year after year along familiar routes. The interconnected habitats along the waterway support an immense range of species that rely on the river's structure to navigate changing seasons. Even during harsh winters when the surface freezes, life persists beneath the ice and along sheltered banks. The river becomes a living corridor where movement and survival are intertwined with the rhythm of flowing water. Some rivers release rare gases from deep geological faults. Where underground fractures extend far into the crust, water can intersect pockets of gas formed during ancient geological processes. As the river cups deeper into the landscape, these trapped gases find pathways to the surface. Bubbles rise through the current, carrying distinct chemical signatures that reveal the origins of the material below. Some gases indicate volcanic activity that has long since quieted. Others point to slow transformations occurring deep beneath layers of rock. The release often occurs quietly, creating subtle clusters of bubbles that drift along eddies or collect at the surface before dissipating into the air. These emissions help researchers study the geological history of the region, offering clues about tectonic movements, buried minerals, and the energy stored within the earth. The river becomes a messenger from the deep, bringing traces of ancient events into the open air as it continues its passage across the land. The Gambia River supported a network of interwoven trade cultures. Communities along this waterway once formed thriving networks that stretched across regions connected by travel routes, markets, and shared traditions. Traders guided boats loaded with goods such as cloth, grain, salt, and metalwork along the calm stretches, navigating by knowledge passed down through generations. Villages grew into important exchange points where stories, languages, and craftsmanship blended into a rich cultural tapestry. Musicians, artisans, and scholars traveled the river routes alongside merchants, spreading ideas that shaped social life far beyond the banks. Seasonal floods enriched the soil and supported agriculture that sustained these communities. As regional kingdoms rose and fell, the river remained a stable link, binding various groups together. Archaeological sites reveal evidence of long-distance trade that flourished due to the dependable path provided by the water. The river nurtured societies whose influence reached deep into surrounding lands, shaping a vibrant history that continues to echo along its course. Some rivers maintain warm layers beneath cold winter surfaces. When winter casts ice across long sections of a river, the water below can remain surprisingly warm due to the insulating effect of the frozen surface. The layer of ice traps heat rising from deeper currents, creating a stable environment beneath the frozen shell. Fish and other aquatic life gather in these warmer layers, moving carefully through the water in slow, efficient motions that conserve energy. In certain regions, groundwater springs feed into the river from below, adding warmth that further protects the deeper channels from severe temperature drops. These subtle variations create pockets where life persists even during the harshest periods. When the river begins to thaw, the warm interior mixes with meltwater, creating swirling patterns that reveal the transition from frozen quiet to flowing movement. The river demonstrates an incredible ability to preserve life beneath a surface that appears lifeless, hiding its continued motion beneath a silent sheet of ice. The Shatt al-Arab unites two great rivers into a single flow toward the sea. Where two mighty waterways meet, their combined current forms a broad channel that carries fresh water toward distant coastal wetlands and estuaries. Along the banks, communities have long relied on this union for irrigation, fishing, and transportation. The merging currents create a dynamic environment where sediments from both rivers blend, forming fertile soils that support palms, crops, and thriving ecosystems. Birds flock to the marshes fed by the outflow, while fish migrate through the joined waters to reach breeding grounds upstream. The meeting point of the rivers has shaped history, influencing settlement patterns, trade networks, and cultural interactions across the region. The wide channel that emerges from the confluence pulses with the energy of two distinct sources, united into a single force moving steadily toward the sea. The landscape reflects the harmony of their combined flow and the life that blossoms along its edges. Some rivers record distant storms through ripple marks in their beds. When powerful storms unleash wind and rain across mountains or distant plains, rivers react even if the weather never touches their immediate surroundings. The sudden surge of runoff carries energy that travels downstream, creating patterns on the riverbed that ripple across gravel and sand. These marks harden into place when flows recede, preserving the memory of storms that occurred far upriver. Geologists study the shape and spacing of the ripples to determine the strength of the water movement and the direction of the surge. Each set of markings captures a moment when the river briefly transformed under the influence of weather in another region. Over time, layers of these preserved ripples reveal long patterns of rainfall, drought, and climatic change. The river becomes a storyteller that records events beyond its horizon, engraving the echoes of storms into the shifting floor beneath its current. The Sau Lorenzo contains wetlands that shift like living maps. Across this remarkable river system, seasonal rains and dry spells transform the terrain into a landscape that seems to redraw itself each year. When the water rises, long corridors of marsh expand into wide lakes that swallow grasslands whole. Channels split and reform, creating branching pathways that wander through floating vegetation. As the floodplain recedes, newly exposed ground appears in unexpected places, revealing fresh habitats for birds, fish, and grazing animals. Plants that anchor themselves during one season may find their roots stranded on dry earth the next. Villages adapt to these changes by navigating wooden boats along routes that differ from year to year, guided by knowledge passed down through families familiar with the river's shifting behavior. The wetlands act as enormous breathing spaces where water, soil, and life move together in a rhythm older than any nearby settlement. Each transformation turns the region into a living map that evolves with every change in the river's pulse. Some rivers hide ancient lake beds beneath their modern channels. Long after prehistoric lakes dried into vast plains, rivers moved across the landscape and carved new routes through the old basins. Beneath their present paths lie buried sediments that reveal stories of environments once rich with water and early life. These layers contain pollen, shells, and microscopic organisms that thrived in the former lakes. As the river deepens its channel, it occasionally uncovers these traces, exposing pockets of soft clay or mineral-rich mud that differ sharply from surrounding soils. Scientists studying these deposits can determine when the ancient lake existed, how large it once was, and which species depended on it. In some areas, the shape of the land still echoes the old shorelines, guiding the modern river along gentle curves that mirror the outline of the vanished waters. These hidden beds remind us that today's flowing channels rest upon landscapes shaped by eras long gone, carrying forward the quiet memory of lakes that once spread across the plains. The Fly River builds expanding river mouths with its vast sediment load. Flowing from the highlands toward distant seas, this powerful river carries enormous quantities of sand, silt, and fine clay gathered from mountains, forests, and rolling hills. As the current slows near the coast, the heavy materials begin to settle, creating new layers of land that creep outward into the surrounding waters. The river continuously builds channels, bars, and islands that shift with each passing season. During heavy rains, the sediment load increases dramatically, adding fresh deposits that transform the delta into a maze of waterways. Fish, crustaceans, and birds thrive in the nutrient-rich environment created by this constant reshaping. Plants take root on newly formed ground, stabilizing some areas while others remain fluid and unpredictable. Over time, the delta becomes one of the most rapidly expanding river mouths on the planet, demonstrating the immense power of sediment transport. The river uses these tiny grains to create entire landscapes that grow, change, and renew themselves year after year. Some rivers carve natural caves by slowly eating through soft stone. Where water flows across regions made of limestone or other soluble rock, it begins a quiet yet relentless transformation. Rainwater, enriched with carbon dioxide from the air and soil, becomes slightly acidic as it enters the river system. This gentle acidity allows the water to dissolve the stone it encounters, widening cracks and forming small hollows that deepen with time. As years turn into centuries, these hollows expand into caves with walls smoothed by constant flow. Stalactites and stalagmites grow slowly in chambers, where dripping water leaves behind minerals carried from far upstream. Some caves include underground rivers that echo softly through darkness, guiding their currents through narrow passageways. Creatures adapted to perpetual night find shelter here, living in a world shaped entirely by slow erosion. Each twist and corridor bears witness to the patient work of water, which can empty vast volumes of rock without a single moment of force or haste. The Cuban once helped shape entire pastoral cultures. Across the fertile plains of the northern Caucasus, this river served as a life source for communities dependent on herding and seasonal movement. Its floodplains provided rich grasses that nourished flocks of sheep, goats, and horses. Ancient routes followed the water, linking distant pastures and creating pathways where trade, language, and tradition mingled. The river's steady flow allowed settlements to form near fords that became gathering points for festivals, trading fairs, and diplomatic meetings among neighboring groups. Archaeological findings reveal tools, pottery, and woven goods that illustrate how deeply daily life intertwined with the river's cycles. As empires and cultures rose and receded, the pastoral communities adapted, always returning to the Cuban for grazing, water, and shelter. The river shaped social structures through the demands of herding and seasonal travel, influencing how families moved and how communities interacted. Its presence supported an entire way of life, rooted in mobility, resilience, and an intimate understanding of the land. Floating meadows travel down some rivers like drifting islands. In certain wetlands, mats of vegetation detach from the riverbank and begin slow journeys downstream. These floating meadows are woven from tangled roots, grasses, and water-loving plants that remain buoyant even when weighed down by soil and rainwater. Birds land on them to forage, insects build colonies among their leaves, and small animals sometimes take refuge on their drifting surfaces. As the river carries them forward, the meadows shift shape with every bend, sometimes joining other mats to form larger drifting islands. During high water, some travel great distances before lodging against a bank or settling in a quiet eddy. Once anchored, they may root again and become part of the floodplain. Their movement redistributes seeds and nutrients along the river, creating pockets of new growth where none existed before. These floating gardens demonstrate nature's ability to transport entire ecosystems with nothing more than the gentle guidance of flowing water. The tala protects forests found nowhere else on Earth. This Kenyan river flows through regions where unique woodlands survive because of the steady moisture the water provides. Even during dry seasons, underground channels feed the soil near the banks, keeping certain plant species alive despite surrounding aridity. Many of these trees and shrubs exist only within this narrow corridor and rely entirely on the river's presence. Birds, insects, and mammals depend on the sheltered forests for breeding, feeding, and refuge from heat. The river sustains a long chain of connected habitats that stretch through landscapes where water can otherwise be scarce. Communities living nearby rely on these forests for fruit, medicine, and cultural practices rooted in generations of knowledge. The river's dependable flow protects a botanical heritage that might have vanished without its influence. Each bend shelters pockets of vegetation shaped by centuries of adaptation, forming a living archive of species held safe by the humid breath of the waterway. Some rivers leave ancient channels that glow clearly in satellite images. When a river abandons a former path, it leaves behind traces that become part of the landscape for centuries. These old channels fill with sediments that absorb moisture differently from surrounding ground. During certain seasons, plants grow along these buried paths in distinctive patterns, creating subtle ribbons of color visible only from above. Soil in these abandoned routes often retains minerals and organic material deposited when the river once flowed there. The combination of moisture, vegetation, and soil chemistry creates outlines that appear like faint scars etched into the land. Even long after the river has shifted to a new course, these forgotten channels remain legible to modern eyes viewing the Earth from space. Researchers use the glowing traces to reconstruct how rivers migrated across valleys and plains, revealing movements that shaped entire regions. The hidden marks show how quietly and powerfully flowing water can redraw the map of a landscape over time. The Rufiji creates complex deltas that shift with every passing season. As this East African river approaches the sea, it divides into a network of channels that twist through mangroves, mudflats, and tidal plains. Each rainy season sends a surge of fresh water and sediment downstream, building new banks while washing away older formations. Islands appear where currents slow, and then disappear when the next flood redistributes the landscape. The delta supports a stunning diversity of wildlife. Fish spawn in sheltered shallows, birds nest among dense mangrove roots, and mammals wander through tall grasses during low tides. The shape of the entire region changes subtly from year to year, creating a mosaic of habitats that respond to the river's shifting energy. Communities living along the delta adapt by learning which channels remain navigable, which fields will flood, and which patches of forest will thrive after each season's transformation. The Rufiji continually reshapes its own world, creating a living map that evolves with the rhythm of the water. Underground labyrinths carry some rivers before they burst back into sunlight. In regions where sinkholes and fractured rock create deep openings in the earth, entire sections of a river can vanish into darkness. Once underground, the water follows twisting corridors shaped by natural erosion, moving through chambers where echoes reveal the vastness of the hidden world. Along the way, minerals dissolve into the flow, changing the water's chemistry. Pools form in wide caverns, attracting creatures adapted to total darkness. As the current continues, it may split into multiple routes, weaving through a maze of tunnels before gathering again into a single powerful stream. Eventually, the river emerges at a spring or cliffside opening, surging back into daylight with renewed force. The contrast between the silent underground journey and the bright return creates striking changes in temperature, clarity, and movement. These hidden passages demonstrate how deeply water can sculpt the planet, carving unseen realms beneath the surface before rising once more into the open world. As our journey along these wandering waters comes to a close, let your thoughts drift the way rivers drift toward the sea. You have traveled through ancient valleys, shifting deltas, hidden caves, and quiet wetlands. You have followed the gentle rhythm of currents that reshape the world grain by grain. Even now, the rivers continue their timeless work, carving stories into the land while you rest in the stillness they inspire. If you enjoyed this slow and curious journey, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here through the calm and quiet spaces we explore together. You are always welcome to return whenever you need a peaceful place to drift. For now, let your breathing soften. Let your body settle into the comfort beneath you. Let the sound of imaginary water carry you away from the bright edges of the day and into a place where everything flows gently and nothing needs to be hurried. Rest easy, my friend. Good night.